Okay, I have a little bit of a concern because, yeah, so I noticed like two different types of content that I really don't like, and I just kind of thought nobody took it seriously, but now enough people that I feel like are like, all right, maybe they're like beds or something in reality, but they've been recommending, AI videos and podcasts. And there's nothing wrong with a podcast intrinsically. It's just there's a lot of podcasts. There are, three guys sitting around some microphones that don't really know shit about anything. They're just like normal Joes speculating. That's the identity of the show, right? Like, if I had a show, I would invite on the biggest weirdos that know the stuff that I don't know, that my body of knowledge and their body of knowledge can come together almost like some kind of think tank, which I think is very much in line with esoteric society sort of thing. So basically, I would do what I'm intending to do with my group with it, right? But then you don't see that, not really. You see three people have some goal um, of there's not even a goal, it's just content, and it's a lot of joking around and bullshitting around. I personally don't appreciate it, or the shock value, or there's certain things that get views. It's not about the podcast genre. It's I used to watch Beer Biceps. I don't watch it as much anymore. He hasn't had any guests on lately that I've really, you know, uh, liked as much as Rajarshi Nandi, but um, honestly, I forget, Rajneesh or something is the host name. Um, the things that him and Rajarshi Nandi talked about were really helpful to my practice, actually. Like, that's sort of what I'm talking about, but honestly, all of his videos they're just not, they just don't happen to be interesting to me, and they're really long. They're things that either I already have knowledge on, or it's just like there's some Hindu-centric conspiracy theories on, which these are big movements in India, and a lot of it is probably true, like Ravana's airport in Sri Lanka. That's like a site. Like he is said in the Ramayana to have had airships. It talks about the airships. Some of the stuff you think, oh, it's really subtle in the Hindu scriptures. No, not really. You're gonna have a hard time finding the passage where it actually talks about it, because these are just gigantic texts. But you know, or not. Sometimes you just open it up and it's like, whoa, front page. Like one of the first chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks about right at the beginning, actually, it talks about remote viewing. Um, or was that the Bhagavad Gita? Oof. Nah. Oh shit, I forget. But yeah, there's one of those texts. The very first thing is Dhritarashtra talking to his advisor who can do remote viewing. Um, and it's not that, sometimes the Bible, it's like in between the lines, maybe type thing. Um, it's simply not like that in the Vedic literatures. It's very explicit. It's very front page mythological. I do think some of it, I think, is a bit metaphorical. I think a lot of it isn't. Like the Mahabharata says the world is flat, so therefore I think the world is flat. Am I going to trust the Mahabharata, which is, part of the Hindu scriptures that have transformed my health and my magical, really are some of the, they've taught me a lot of my magical practice. I shouldn't say that exactly. More like magical, the philosophy behind it, a lot of it. I've talked about how I use Hinduism as a filter. That's probably the best thing. because I think even Hinduism has some problems. So yeah, but see, the problem with the podcast genre is what people are actually going to watch is something that they kind of know something about. So, everyone kind of wonders about, like, Stonehenge, for example. Everyone kind of wonders, why do serial killers kill people? Some people, there's certain things that, yeah, you can get views on. I get it. Yeah, I find it really bankrupt. Oh, there's a lot of interest in the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Okay. So, yeah. I don't think people are necessarily interested, like people in general are always as interested in the things that are actually interesting or actually going to be, profitable, or as far as growth, profitable, the things that are actually going to make a difference. Or like Manly P. Hall, for one. I don't like Manly P. Hall's work. I don't like Blavatsky's work. But everyone loves Hall and Blavatsky. And I think, like Dion Fortune, I wish we got a little more press. People read Dion Fortune for sure, but online people only talk about Hall and Blavatsky, as far as I've seen in certain groups. But yeah, it's annoying to me because I guess that's a bit of a tangent. This podcast thing, though, it's more relatable, and it's like, in the confines of the podcast, there can be some speculation of maybe the underlying narrative. I also think a lot of these people that do podcasts are feds, because a lot of times they don't even build a narrative. They're just joking and yokeling around. Yeah, so they're like people yokeling around, calling each other gay, stuff like that. Oh, and maybe aliens exist, and like one or two facts that everyone already know are posed, and it's more about consensus, like everyone wants to believe aliens exist for the most part. And then you watch a podcast of people talking about, oh yeah, alien, what if, that's why I'm really convinced a lot of these people are just feds, because first of all, there's a lot of evidence that doesn't get talked about, and it's kind of like, why have I never seen a podcast advertised about the case of Kyle Odom, which is just, oh my god, it just cuts the system right open. I think he's wrong about some things. I think he's sincere, and I believe that, he was driven to the edge by these things. I've had similar experiences, actually, not nearly to that level, and, I mean, the biggest thing is, I think, since he had this energetic communion with this really highly advanced astral being, that he's able to open the reality in a way that probably I'm not. But I also think I don't agree that God is completely made up. I think the concept of like the Father God that just sort of controls everything is made up, or perhaps not made up, but like, the funny thing is, I actually forgot that he said that they're from Mars, because Marduk, or Jehovah, is a war god, and seems to have a lot to do with Mars. In my own sort of magical workings with him, and magical workings. It's like, is astral projection really a working? Like the same as like the Babylon working, or different magical workings that different magicians have done. I think astral projection can get the point of a more sophisticated magical working. So yeah, I'll just keep calling it a magical working. It essentially is. That's me debating with myself of how do I even categorize a lot of these things I do. anyways, like the Kyle Odom story is, it's so interesting, and there's so much to look at it and pick through it. Okay, at some point it comes to, some like basically anti-Semitism, so, which I don't agree with that. I don't, so I had some things, I was sorting some things out, and I was doing some exploration, some exploratory ventures on the astral plane, and I ended up annoying the Naga, who preside over, basically the Jews. So, and they told me that Jews are like Mercury, and yeah, they are related to like banking and money because money is Mercury, right? And that's just how it is. And anyone who goes against the Jews will be punished for that reason, or at least the Mercury. If there's more of a mercurial element of them, and I'm interested in the whole Khazarian mafia conspiracy theory. What was it? During the French Revolution, they wore these caps. It was called like Scythian caps or something. I don't know. There's a lot of suspicious things where it would make a lot more sense if they were like Scythians or Khazarians or whatever. I will say that like Sephardim and Ashkenazim look so different from each other, and they act different, and I don't know. It's believable to me. Another thing with the Kyle. Okay, I'm getting off topic again, but the Kyle Odom story. We can talk about Kyle Odom for hours. Me and someone on a show could talk about Kyle Odom for hours and still be grading it against all kinds of other things and thinking how does this new knowledge fit in with the knowledge we have, and what about other knowledge. And I don't see that attempt, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I loved watching Beer Biceps, is you've got people on there quoting Hindu scriptures. Some of them are more like scientists and stuff, which scientists never change their mind, right? The scientific community never changes its mind, right? About anything, ever. So, some science sprinkled on to create some kind of like consensus or something, or the feeling that something is more settled than perhaps it actually is. I feel like you have to be a scientist to understand science in that way. Like, otherwise you're just, the Karen that's like, studies show that, who knows if those studies are worth anything. I guess that's something. Someone sends me a podcast, oh, you should watch this, I think it'd really be up your alley. 2.5 hours, some guys dressed all like, just all casual, and slump back. Really, you just look at the thumbnail and it looks like the vibe of it is like guys smoking a doobie in their garage, and it's like, but and I'm incredibly harsh against certain things because of, it's just, how many times have I seen a podcast that was any good at all? Any good at all. Now I'm starting to find podcasters that I like, but I actually am not finding them. My friend Julian's finding them, and it's going on their podcast. So I guess a little bit of a shout out to Cryptic Chronicles and the Whole Rabbit podcast. The Whole Rabbit, they are non-OTO Thelemites as far as they said. They seem like cool people. I really like their show, and they have a lot of information on it. That's the thing is, I want to when I watch a podcast, I feel like the point of a podcast is the iteration of knowledge in real time. Why else would you do it? Like, what's the point? you know, if you just want to entertain yourself, why not watch, you know, any number of feature films or anime. Yeah, you know, you could play any number of video games, and video games are really good for you, actually. Like, so, a lot of times we have this Martian drive in us that we need to do something. We need to make some progress. We need to see some development. And video games can really help. Like, I really have that, and video games help me to keep my sanity in that. Um, Also, you know, yeah, there's a lot of placements in Mars. Also, it can be a very good astrological remedy to play video games, especially depending on a video game. Um, so, you know, sometimes there's also differences with that between single player and multiplayer, like online multiplayer. As far as actual astrological remedies, like this is a little bit I heard this from Kapil Raj, KRS Astrology. You know, anyways, I guess my question is, like, if it's not if we're not engaging in the rigorous iteration of knowledge through this, like, infotainment typing. I hate infotainment for the most part. Even though I'm sort of, in a way, you could almost say well, no, infotainment's kind of a narrow definition. Anyways, you know, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you want to learn, then learn. If you just want to have something fun to listen to, do that. You know what I mean? And maybe what I'm saying is almost a little insensitive, because I know I kind of talk fast and I can jump topics kind of quickly, and, like, because in my mind everything is interrelated. Maybe, you know, maybe some people, I know that this podcast culture is just, I feel it's a little bit of a centralized rule out, you know, by feds, basically, of certain opinions of, like, that, to say to the common people, hey, this is an acceptable thing to think and believe. And, you know, as podcast upon podcast upon podcast comes out, you know, new group of garage dudes, whatever, then it's like, maybe some people start to be swayed that would otherwise only hope that, you know, aliens or something is perhaps true. It also feels a little bit like, I also feel like they're trying to make a bit of a subculture of this sort of speculative delusion. You know, I don't know exactly what the point of some of these things are, but I know some people, speculation can almost become like a cope from just the difficulty of life and things. Same thing with conspiracy theories. Some people know all the conspiracy theories and are right about most of the things they know, and but still, it's just a cope. Oh, I know, and then they hold that like a teddy bear and are like, oh, I know how I'm gonna be prepared, even though in reality, simply knowing some of the basic facts from a very negative, pessimistic viewpoint is not going to be the same as being actually prepared. Which I don't think. Some people are also into doomsday prepping. This is also kind of an ancillary topic. There's some people who are quite passionate about doomsday prepping. I didn't take it seriously. I thought it was just like reality TV bullshit, but no, some people take it really seriously and are, you know, seriously buying silver. I don't know, I heard I heard that from one dude I know is a Fed, actually, and the other guy probably also is a Fed, so I was probably right originally. Yeah, building a bunker in your backyard is gonna do shit all to help you with the Nephilim alien invasion apocalypse, which I don't think is gonna happen. I think aliens coming is the new Christ. Is the second coming of Christ. I think this was the beast system. I mean, how could it really get any worse? Yeah, seriously, like, unless you can pack some, like, a stockpile of ballistic missiles and you know, I don't know what else. I had one friend that proposed a good solution to doomsday prepping. He said to make a giant underground thing full of mushrooms, and then the people could just eat the mushrooms and survive. It would take quite a large area, but and I think that came from somewhere for him. But he is also, this guy I'm talking about is a little bit crazy. And he wasn't talking about doomsday prepping. He was talking about some left-wing activism stuff, but probably also a little bit adjacent to doomsday prepping. I do know one doomsday prepper personally who I know is not a Fed. I forgot that he does that. Yeah, doomsday prepping's not gonna do anything. Although I will say for him, it's not doomsday prepping. It's more like, for him, it's actually feasible. It would actually make a lot of sense. But if he wasn't living where he is living, it wouldn't make sense. You know, maybe some people in rural enough America can pull it off. You know, there's also, I think, being in the rural world just makes you cut off from the decision-making process of government and everything else. You know, you're away from the center of power, so you're giving up power to others who will then be there. You know, like maybe you had some small voice, but if, you know, 1 million people go away that have a small voice, then that's possible dissent that's completely gone for you know, the machinery of the cities, because the cities rule the states. Anyways.